Writing Learning Objectives. This is Lisa Knight, your instructor. This video will discuss what a learning objective is, how to write measurable learning objectives, and will demonstrate an online objective builder tool that will assist you in writing learning objectives. What is a learning objective? A learning objective answers the question, what is it that your students should be able to do at the end of the class or course that they could not do before? A learning objective makes clear the intended learning outcome rather than what form the instruction will take. A learning objective focuses on student performance and it utilizes action verbs. And it should state the behavior students will be expected to perform. Well-written learning objectives can give students precise statements of what is expected of them and provide guidelines for assessing student progress. Our goal for students is learning, and if students don't know what they should be able to do at the end of class, then it will be difficult for them to reach that goal. There are 3 types of learning objectives. Number 1, cognitive objectives. Emphasize knowing, conceptualizing, comprehending, applying, synthesizing, and evaluating. These objectives deal with students' knowledge of the subject matter and how students demonstrate this knowledge. Number 2, psychomotor objectives. Involve physical skills and dexterity related to the instruction. Successful instruction involves teaching new skills or coordination of old ones. For example, physical coordination involved in playing tennis or a musical instrument. And finally, number 3, attitudinal objectives are specific statements about attitudes, values, and emotions that students will have as a result of taking part in class activities. The first step to writing a learning objective is identifying who your audience is. For example, your audience may be geology students, training associates, math students, or a management team. It is more important to understand what background knowledge they bring to the course, what learning style preferences they may have, and what resources are available or not available to them. Developing a clear understanding of who your learners are will help you identify appropriate learning outcomes for your course. So what is a learning objective? How do you go about ensuring that it is a clear objective? Learning objectives emphasize observed activity. The only way you can determine whether or not a student has learned something is to observe some kind of behavior that indicates learning has taken place. This behavior may range from correctly answering multiple choice questions to requiring that the student actually demonstrate a skill. Learning objectives emphasize student activity. Instructors sometimes state objectives in terms of their activities. However, learning objectives focus exclusively on student behaviors and not on the behaviors of the instructor. Imagine that you're teaching a class and your learning objective is that the student will understand the process of inductive and deductive reasoning. This is focusing on understanding the material that's being taught, but it's not specifically telling the student what they're going to do to learn that. A better objective would be the student will listen to several letters and read from the editorial page of a newspaper or magazine. He/she will participate in a discussion about the type of logic employed, the effectiveness of the evidence, and the validity of the argument. In this example, specific activities are listed that the student will have to complete in order to learn about inductive and deductive reasoning. Finally, learning objectives emphasize student outcomes. Instructors often state objectives in terms of process or procedure, while learning objectives refer to the end results of instruction. A good learning objective states what a student will know or be able to do with the instruction. For example, consider this learning objective. The student will understand the fundamentals of respiration. The fundamentals of respiration is a general process. This objective does not specify what parts of the process the student will understand after completing instruction. Consider this modified example. Given a list of chemical compounds, the student will select one that is found in each step of the process of respiration and one that is found in each step of the process of photosynthesis. This objective emphasizes exactly what the student will be doing with the information given to them. So now that we understand the basic requirements of a good learning objective, how do we write clear and measurable learning objectives? A good learning objective has 4 parts. It describes a condition of learning. It identifies the audience. It describes a measurable behavior using Bloom's taxonomy, and defines the degree to which the learning outcome will be met. Consider this objective. Given the video, Supervolcano to watch, geology students will describe 3 criteria used to classify supervolcanoes in 300 words or less. In this example, the condition of learning is, given the video, Supervolcano to watch. The audience includes geology students. The measurable behavior is to describe 3 criteria used to classify supervolcanoes, and the degree is to do so in 300 words or less. Bloom's taxonomy is a hierarchy of 6 cognitive skills, arranged from less to more complex. The lowest order thinking skills are grouped under knowledge, activities related to remembering information. The thinking skills increase in complexity as you move up the taxonomy through comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. When you are choosing specific cognitive skills you want your students to demonstrate, you should use the associated verbs related to that cognitive skill that allow students to demonstrate that specific behavior. For example, a math instructor may give students a graph of function and ask them to predict the shape of a graph of the derivative of that function in order to demonstrate that they comprehend what a derivative is. Writing learning objectives can be overwhelming, especially to instructors that have never had any educational training. There is help available online via several free objective building applets on the web. Watch the video following this to see how to use the Objective Builder tool created by the University of Central Florida. The link to the Objective Builder website is provided to you in Blackboard. You will want to go to that web page and scroll down until you find the objective builder. The first 2 pages of this applet are simply instructions and a description of what the applet does. In order to navigate through the applet, you can use the right arrow to go to the next page, or the left arrow to go to the previous page. I'm going to skip past the first 2 pages and go to the very first step of the tutorial. The first thing you will do is identify the condition. That is, you're going to specify exactly what you're going to give the audience to learn the material with. I've written down a topographic map of Sanford, North Carolina. In the bottom, you can see that it's written, given a topographic map of Sanford, North Carolina. And now I can go to the next one, which is my audience. And my audience is going to be geology students. And I'll go to my next, and probably this is the best part of the online builder. It's the most helpful, at least that's what I think. Identifying the specific behavior and identifying the verb that's associated with that behavior. So the first step is determine what kind of objective you're writing, a cognitive, psychomotor, or affective, or attitudinal. I'm going to write a cognitive objective. And since geology is a low-level class, it's an introduction to geology, I'm going to look at this hierarchy of cognitive levels, and I'm going to choose one of the lower ones. And that's not because I don't think my students can handle the higher ones, but in an introductory class, the goal of the introductory class is to introduce the student to new concepts, to the basic concepts related to the course material. So you should probably pick from within the first 4 levels. But that does not mean that you can't ever have them evaluate or create something. That could be a final project. Now, I do teach a second semester of geology that builds on this. So that second semester of geology is going to assume, because Geology 111 is a prerequisite, that they understand the basics of all the concepts they learned in Geology 111. So that course is going to employ more of the upper level skills in Bloom's, because if you're building on previous knowledge, now you know that they understand it, but now they need to apply it to new situations, evaluate, analyze, all the stuff that they need to do to synthesize new material into a larger construct. For my example, I'm going to choose the understand skill set. And now here's the best part of this applet. It gives you a list of verbs to go from. Cite examples, demonstrate, describe, determine, differentiate, discriminate, discuss, explain. So I can have them do anything on this list, and that will demonstrate to me that they understand how to use a topographic map. So I guess for me, I'm probably going to pick identify. And then what am I going to have them identify? Well, I'm going to have them identify the area on the map that has the highest elevation. And now I'm going to go to the last and final step, which is the degree. So this is the level of accuracy that I want. Do I want them to be proficient in this? Do I want them to be, do this in a certain amount of time on the first attempt? So I think I'm going to choose on the first attempt. And now I'm done with the degree. And if you look at the bottom, they've written out that objective for you. So let's go to the final page. Given a topographic map of Sanford, North Carolina, geology students will identify the area on the map that has the highest elevation on the first attempt. So now I have all the parts of my objective: the condition, the audience, the behavior, and the degree. And I can continue writing objectives, and then I can just simply copy all of my objectives and paste them into a document. So this is a great tool for you to use, especially if you're new to writing objectives. And I would suggest that you give it a try, because if you can identify the learning objectives and go ahead and map those out, then you can tie specific activities to those learning objectives. So, for example, this particular learning objective, I may include a quiz on using that topographic map, and in that quiz, they will have one chance to take that quiz. So there's the first attempt degree that I've mentioned in my objective. And then I can include a question about where the highest elevation is on that map.